Hi, this is Mark Raven. Welcome to episode 107 of Lean Blog Audio. This is November 18th, 2015, and today's episode is titled, Maybe we should call it The Many Whys instead of The 5 Whys in Lean and Lean Startup. Now, when you ask people about the Lean Startup methodology, one of the first things you'll often hear is advocacy for a root cause problem-solving method called the 5 Whys. Now, as I mentioned yesterday in episode 107, I'm currently attending Eric Ries's Lean Startup Conference that finishes up today. And I hope you'll say hi if you are here at the conference. Now, for a bit of background, Eric wrote a blog post about the 5 Whys, crediting Taiichi Ohno, one of the creators of the Toyota production system. You can find a link to that and my podcast with Eric from a few years back where he shared his reflections on Taiichi Ohno. You can find links to all of that at leanblog.org/audio108. So Eric wrote, in part in that blog post, when something goes wrong, we tend to see it as a crisis and seek to blame. A better way is to see it as a learning opportunity, not in the existential sense of general self-improvement. Instead, we can use the technique of asking why 5 times to get to the root cause of the problem. So I think Eric is on the right track that blaming an individual for a systemic error, such as a machine producing a defect, the wrong medication being given to a patient, or a server going down, generally isn't helpful. Most problems, 90% or more, are caused by the system, as Dr. W. Edwards Deming taught us and Toyota reinforces today. So Toyota's corporate website has an article currently on the 5 Whys, and it says in part, quote, according to Taiichi Ohno, pioneer of the Toyota production system in the 1950s, having no problems is the biggest problem of all. Now, Ohno saw a problem not as a negative, but in fact as a Kaizen or continuous improvement opportunity in disguise. Whenever one cropped up, he encouraged his staff to explore problems firsthand until the root causes were found. Observe the production floor without preconceptions, Ohno would advise. Ask why 5 times about every matter, end of quote. So yes, this idea of no problems is a problem is a very common Toyotaism. And Eric also wrote in a helpful HBR article that I've linked to again at leanblog.org/audio108. Behind every supposedly technical problem is actually a human problem. Now, this is usually the case in healthcare, and there's a methodology and framework called Just Culture that helps us figure out when a problem was caused by the system, which is most of the time, and when it's appropriate to consider punishing an individual. Now, I think this Just Culture method would be helpful in startups and other settings as well. What's just and fair for those doing the work? Blaming an individual for a problem that a colleague would have likely also made is not fair and just. It's not just for the sake of future patients. It's not just to them to hamper problem solving, which hampers the prevention of future problems, by naming, blaming, and shaming, as people would say in healthcare, the predominant culture before Lean. So once we start asking why instead of who, we might ask why the number is normally expressed as 5, as the 5 Whys. Why is this the case? Well, yes, Taiichi Ohno wrote about the 5 Whys, and asking why 5 times is a way to get beyond the surface and closer to a root cause. I think the key is that we ask why more than once. It's not always 5 Whys that gets us to something that seems like a potential root cause. Asking once or twice might not get deep enough. We might be seeing a superficial symptom instead of the root cause. So I would propose maybe it should be called, or should have been called, The Many Whys instead of the 5 Whys, since people tend to take things quite literally. People are looking for a prescriptive approach. Many Whys, I think, is a good prescription. There's no magic about the number 5. I've seen some people write that 5 is somehow a magic number. Well, no, it's not really the case. Ask why more than once, probably more than twice, and it might take 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 whys. Now, one reason the number of whys varies is that it's very dependent upon the way we frame a problem. Properly defining a problem is really the first step in this Toyota problem-solving process. In a hospital setting, where I work most often, we might frame a problem in different ways at different levels. We might start by stating a problem vaguely as something like, it's too noisy in the hospital inpatient units at night. Now, a more specific and quantifiable problem statement might point to the need to reduce the number of complaints or to improve patient survey scores, because it's better to know the scale of the problem so we can know if we've eliminated it or at least we've made things a little bit better. If we ask, why is it noisy at night? There might be multiple reasons why. So again, the 5 whys process is usually not simple and linear. We might need to list different causes in something that's called a fishbone diagram, or otherwise known as an Ishikawa diagram, something that's not mentioned in Eric's book, The Lean Startup. There's not always a single magical root cause to problems in complex systems. So let's look at an example that Eric used in his book. Talking about IT servers, he said, 1, a new release disabled a feature for customers. Why? Because a particular server failed. 2, why did the server fail? Because an obscure subsystem was used in the wrong way. 3, why was it used in the wrong way? The engineer who used it didn't know how to use it properly. 4, why didn't he know? Because he was never trained. 5, why wasn't he trained? Because his manager doesn't believe in training new engineers because he and his teams are too busy. So I think the implication here is that the root cause of the problem is the manager doesn't believe in training new engineers. But in that 5th why, in that 5th statement, there's actually another why question and answer kind of embedded in there. It could have been stated as 5, why wasn't he trained? Because his manager doesn't believe in training new engineers. 6, why doesn't the manager believe in training? He and his team are too busy. So that's actually a 6th why. But should we have stopped after 5? Probably not. We could keep going. We could say 7, why are they too busy? Meetings are too long. That might be one reason. 8, why are meetings too long? Because they don't have agendas and things get off topic. So I would ask, are we done? Are we done after 8 whys? The problem could have also been framed at a higher level. So instead of asking why a new release disabled a feature for customers, we could have started with, why have we lost a bunch of customers this month? Because a feature for customers got disabled. 2, why was the feature disabled? Because the new release went badly. So as we go through this, we might, if we had started at that level of a problem with that framing, we might be up to 9 or 10 whys. So the exact number of whys really doesn't matter. Solving the problem matters. I would recommend, don't be too prescriptive or don't get too stuck on the number 5. What matters, again, is the thought process, not just the whys, but the entire thought process, as I blogged and talked about yesterday. Identify problems. Don't blame individuals. Understand the problem and clarify it. Brainstorm potential causes. Brainstorm countermeasures that might help, but then test those countermeasures and reflect upon or improve your causal analysis. So when should we stop asking why? I was taught to stop when we've reached a point where we can no longer develop effective countermeasures. If we keep asking why and we start pointing at factors like quarterly financial pressures or blaming society or our education system or Wall Street, we've probably exhausted the usefulness of asking why. So what are your thoughts? Do you use the many whys method in healthcare, manufacturing, or startups, or some other setting? I'd love to hear what you think. Go to leanblog.org/audio107 to post a comment and to be part of the discussion.